into technical problems because of all of the different people doing a few slides here and there and whatever, blah, blah. But no matter what, we've already, I think, made great progress just with what I call the LIST group, the LepNet Label Imaging Support Team, where we had another meeting this morning. But tonight at 6:30 is supposed to be that group dinner. And I actually, hopefully we've got a back room at the Blue River Grill, whatever place. It's about a block away. So is everybody expecting, can everybody make that dinner tonight? So yeah, what we don't get done today, who knows, we may get done tonight. I had dinner there last night. It was great. So like I said, it'll be interesting to see whether this, um, uh, how well this flows. But so here's the agenda. So I'm going to talk for 15 minutes just to provide a really brief overview of a few things. Then if you don't have a presentation, to spend like 4 minutes to go over your collection and specifically how it relates to LepNet, you can just talk from your seat. It's all very informal. And then we'll go into some of the more, into the uh, um, meat of the talks. And lunch, where is lunch? Is it just on your own today? Okay, okay. Uh, then we'll come back here and we will be doing basically our own LepNet meeting until 3 o'clock, and then we'll have a break. And then at 3:15, the iDigBio people, so Deb Paul in the back and Joanna McCaffrey and Larry Page and Shelley and a couple of other iDigBio people are going to orient you in terms of the national digitization. So we put all of our data in and do all the data cleaning and annotating and whatever, and then eventually we ship it to iDigBio as well as GBIF. And then tonight we'll have the meeting. So I can't be here for the 3:15 because I have to go to another meeting. This is going to be an interesting couple of days for me. So, and I know some of you have to actually leave tomorrow, but I'm going to be here through the whole time. Where's Christy Bills? Uh, oh, she was at the ICE meeting and she was supposed to have lunch with me and she couldn't do it. And then she said, I'll make up for it this meeting. I'm like, she did come here last night. Okay. Um, uh, um, anyway, so the degree to which we can have side meetings, I'll try to have them. Even though I hope all of this is relevant, if you have side meetings that involve Lepidoptera and LepNet, not beetles. um, but if you want to, go outside and if you have to leave, for example, and have an important meeting with people, that's great. So Ben Brandt is sitting at the front, and he is the main technology person for this project, and Kat Chapman is sitting next to Ben, and she'll be providing a lot of support, especially Symbiota support for people that will be using Symbiota. I've already gone through the 15 minutes. I haven't even started. So in the 15 minutes, I do want to talk about basically databases again and Symbiota, and then how we're going to communicate, report expectations, and support. In the blue here, I've also put down transcribing and smartphone imaging, LepSnap. I won't say anything more about that. So Andre Premsky, who's sitting in the back, will do a dedicated presentation on LepSnap. But this
Connection lost.
We've lost our, there's Christy. I was thinking you're gonna owe me 2 lunches. Yeah.
Is there, Safari can't open the page. Did we,
Okay, so while he's doing this, I feel very comfortable just talking about this. So this is going to be, LepNet is going to be built on Symbiote. Symbiote is a type of software. It's a database just like Specify and Arctos and Emu.
It looks like it's
really different from all of those in that it also provides a portal that allows all of those databases to come into it. And so I'm perfectly happy with anybody using a database that works with it, as long as you can get data into our Symbiote. Like Larry has worked out with well, can I say your stuff into this? He has a way of getting data. Derek Sites at Alaska has a wonderful system set up for processing. What you say for Harvard, which has their version. So the downside of not having everybody use Symbiote is within Symbiote.
You rock.
Does so let's say, well, we got the people taxonomy table, I shared it with other people, but if you want to add names to those, as we're trying to do now with some of the Mexican left names, then once again, we just have to share with every other database, and we do that. And it also means that if you're sharing the same symbiotic database with your annotations in Symbiote, what we did in the SCAN project was, what we did in the SCAN project, for example, was Kat got very good at georeferencing. So she just farmed herself out to other institutions that needed georeferencing, fast georeferencing, and she was able to do it. Now, we do that with other databases.
We lost connection to the display on this screen here. We're going to grab Kevin real quick to just reestablish that. We're back on with Adobe Connect, but I lost your slide.
Can I go back to my slide though?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I actually did get ahead of myself a little bit. So LepNet is going to be sharing the same database with Scan, Beetles, everything else. It does have its own skin, but although it shares the same database. And like I said, we're already adding to the taxonomy with the great Poll et al. Data. Now,
it's just the airplane.
So when you
looks like we dropped Wi-Fi. That's the wrong network. It should be on that. Oh, okay. Yeah, it dropped.
The only difference is
That's all.
when you go to LepNet and Google Analytics.
Okay. And PowerPoint just crashed. Got it. Thanks, guys.
But it's just not a big.
Yeah, for some reason I dropped that.
Yeah, this was all.
Which one? Actually, the base.
Figure out where he was. Yeah, got it. Thank you. Sorry about the technical problems. Okay, so we got both screens going.
Okay, so here's the data portal. So, like I said, there's lots of different databases that can come in. The difference, like I said, with Symbiote and its other ones, is it brings in. Yeah, thanks, Kat. It can bring in these other databases. The other thing is we share a family of Symbiota portals. So we're an arthropod portal, but we work with 36 other Symbiota portals that work on various things from lichens to vertebrates, mostly plants though. So we share technology with these other portals. And then we ship our data to iDigBio. So if I haven't said this before, I'll say it again and again. Nothing matters unless your data is on the iDigBio portal. Okay, so if you say, well, I've got all these database, all these Excel spreadsheets here, it doesn't matter. Your images, your data have to be on iDigBio. And so if your data is in LepNet, we automatically guarantee it'll be in iDigBio. And then we'll also guarantee that it will go to GBIF as well. So it'll be in a couple of different places. And that benefits you as institutions. You really do want your data in multiple places. Some people only go to GBIF, for example, to look up data. Okay, so I've already talked about having multiple databases. Yes, it probably does create more challenges than opportunities, but we can deal with it. Yeah, and as I said before, if you use Symbiota, then there's more opportunities to collaborate. But the informatics landscape is really dynamic. So For example, what I didn't have up on here initially was TaxonWorks. But Matt Yoder gave a talk at ECN, 2 years ago, saying TaxonWorks is going to be the database you're all going to be using in a couple of years. And so I had a great 5-hour meeting with Matt at the ICE meeting. So one of the things that we're always looking for is where we can collaborate. I'm still hoping that we can find collaborations with Arctos, which is very similar to Symbiota. And I think TaxonWorks has a lot to offer the entomology community. In fact, one of the Penn grants that Chris Grinter is putting in from INHS is going to use TaxonWorks as to enter the data. So who knows where we're going to be a few years from now. But the landscape is dynamic. Okay, I'm just going to go over this really quickly. So our data portal is going to be LepNet. But we also have this secondary website. It's a WordPress site, and there's the URL for that. And I already like it because I can use it. And if I can use it, then everybody, including Paul Opler, should be able to use it. So I've already put, for example, this agenda, which I've changed and everything else. And, you know, when Ben gets a little bit of time, he'll take this ugly WordPress site and hopefully make it a lot prettier. And then we have a grant in with NSF and the ABI program to actually integrate our data portal in with WordPress. So we've really just got one-stop shopping. Okay, so besides that, I can use anything that works for people. So Ann Basham has sent out a link to a Google Drive that she set up, and some people like Google Drives. I'm more than happy to duplicate anything on Google Drive. I like Dropbox. I'm more than happy to give anybody access to Dropbox. I have a professional or whatever account with them so that I keep files for a year. So if you're not really technologically savvy like Larry, who deleted, how many files did you delete last week? The most unlikely person sent me this panicky email saying, I deleted all these files from Dropbox. Why did you give me permission to this? I was like, well, aren't you like head of IT at Yale? And it's like, so he did it. He deleted them. But I love Dropbox because it saves stuff for a year. So if you do something malicious or just not thinking, it's easy to recover the files. And so, like I said, I'm more than happy to give anybody access at any level to the files in Dropbox. Email works great for me. Phone works great for me, as people like Jen knows. I call her on my dog walks. Texting works for me. I've got a 7-year-old daughter. She texts all the time, so I'm really used to texting and Skyping and using Hangout, whatever works. And I just encourage people to communicate with others and with me in whatever way possible, and to not let anything slide. So if there's something that you need to talk about, let's talk. So basic expectations, and most people get this, but so this is from our proposal, and so this is one quick reference. The blue indicates the records, the red are your total number of images that you're responsible for, and I'll probably look at this when I look up, how come they haven't produced this or that. I've provided an Excel spreadsheet that I sent out via email, and then I'll put it on the WordPress site, what your expectations are. Here's And so in this one, for example, I've highlighted in yellow the ones that haven't really started entering data in. And so I will definitely provide you with whatever support you need to get you up and running. There is clearly a group of about 6 institutions that are using Symbiota that haven't really gotten on board, and we'll have 1 or more webinars, dedicated webinars that will get you and your people up and running. Here's a screenshot from LepNet, and so if you go there, there's a statistics tab. In this case, I've just clicked on ASU, and if you can see in that red circle, it says Run Statistics. You can get your statistics to show here the number of records, how many are georeferenced, identified the species. On the right, it shows family distributions, geographic distributions, load order distributions. And so in this case, ASU has 9,403 records. 100% of them are georeferenced. 94% are identified to species. They're in good shape. They've got 1/5 of their quota already done. But it's almost impossible for you to not be able to have a real quick snapshot of where you're at in the digitization process, whether you use Symbiota as an entry database or not. And I'll just point to this. This is in the proposal at the end. It gives a breakdown on all of the costs, and just to remind people that we're promising to digitize we were shooting for $1. Turns out we're at $1.07. Our high resolution imaging is $1.65, and our smartphone imaging we've set at 45 cents. And then the only other thing I want to point is all of the other costs, technical support, project coordination, education, outreach, this meeting, all of that is 11% of our budget. So, which I'm really proud of. So it's a pretty minimal support cost. We put all of it into transcribing and imaging. I'm going to just, let's see, what time is it? This just gives a little bit more detail on the support. So even though Ben has dedicated support for 3 months a year, it's primarily to develop this LepSnap program. Now, luckily, we've run into Andre, and so I'm really hoping that we can leverage Andre's efforts and his partner Talen's efforts along with Visipedia, and that Ben can actually have time to develop other technological advances for Symbiota, and I'll talk about some of those today. I have 1 month a year for network coordination and overseeing the digitization effort at NAU. Kat has no dedicated support, but we do have money here and there that we can cover her to help people out. Now, we can also get LepNet support from Penn grants. So there were 3 Penn grants submitted this time, and I'm also still the TCN lead for SCAN, which does include beetles, and so I'm allowed to put in Penn grants for both. So I sponsored 1 Penn grant on primarily ants for the SCAN grant, and then we had 2 Penn grants submitted. So each one of those Penn grants, NSF allows for some support for the lead institution, or actually another institution, if they have something to support that grant on, that we can use to maintain LepNet support. And NSF did that because they knew that TCNs needed that for sustainability. So there are quite a few subawards on the NAU grant, and the center that I'm the director of at NAU, actually I can't really say this publicly, I'll just go ahead. Well, we all know that indirect funding is it's uh, it's an interesting pot of money. Sometimes it's available and sometimes it's not. If our center runs into hard times, it's our only way to dip into it. But if things are good, then we will have a relatively decent amount of the indirects that come back to us thanks to the subcontracts that we have to help provide basic support too. Um, um, and Basham has 4 months of total support for education outreach, which is phenomenal. For SCAN, we had to completely cut. She had no budget at all for education outreach. And so it's actually really exciting that she's got a little bit of tiny budget to go for it. And we will leverage that to go after more NSF funding. And so I'm really hoping that there's enough people in LepNet that are interested in participating in things beyond the basic expectations of transcribing label data and imaging. And so the last point is to create a network of support by collaborating museums. So there's always some stars that rise up. So at DMNS and SCAN, Chris Grittner was like the star. You know, he was just great in every way possible. And Sandy Brantley at UNM, and I could go on. And it's really critical to identify these people that can help others in developing stuff. So like Nicole is going to be the one for, I feel like, for, no pressure, for LepNet. Okay, now museum overview. So I lost the list of who, I think Mike, I think I had you. So how about the people that do have slides? You can pull them up. I'm going to stand away. And if you don't have slides and you're just going to talk about your museum like I am, then in between slideshows, then we can jump in and talk about our own museums. Okay?
Oh, the Wi-Fi connection is right back there on the board. Give me 1 second.
Katarina.
Okay, and then you can use that to advance if you wanted to. Oh yeah, you can.
So we have a
Or the,
small
I think,
It's a total of 250,000 specimens. It's almost all project driven or undergraduate student driven. Thanks. Thanks for being my mom. The tables are somewhat turned, aren't they? She always calls me her dad. Like, you're not my dad. You're not. We have, I think, 15,000 Lepidopter specimens in our collection, and really the only reason why we have anything identified is because of Paul Opler and Dave Weichel, who periodically come to our collection and identify stuff and go out with us. But if I did a dot map of our collection, where I think we are important is our regional representation. What is it? I think we have a Sistini. Now I can't remember. We do have one. We identified a moth from the Grand Canyon that was described, and so we have a few gems like that. But
All right, thanks. I'll try to keep this pretty quick. 4 minutes is not much, and I didn't know that was a limit. But so I'm from Clemson University. My name is Mike Catarino. Our collection is not mainly Lepidopter. We have a relatively, medium-sized collection for a university, about just over 1 million specimens, mostly from the southeastern U.S. A big chunk of our collection is in alcohol, and that's mainly due to our previous curator, John Morris, being an aquatics, mainly a caddisfly specialist. We've got a lot of other good representation of aquatics, and I was thinking that that wasn't really part of what we're going to do for LepNet, but doing the larval aquatic Lepidoptera would probably make a lot of sense for us to kind of add as we go in. About a quarter of the collection is pinned. We have about 40,000 Lepidoptera. And like I said, a big chunk of that is in alcohol. Our collection's not very well integrated, and this has to do with mainly space issues in the past that we've mostly solved, but we have a lot of kind of outlying collections that we need to integrate. We got an orphan collection from the Citadel, which has a lot of nice stuff from the coast, various other miscellaneous collections, and you all are familiar with that. We have a couple of really nice recent survey collections from Kings Mountain National Park, which is just in our area, and from Congaree National Park, which were done just in the past 5 to 8 years. So these are things we're really excited to get integrated, and LepNet's given us a good reason to do that. So our facilities, we got about 2,000 square feet. We've just recently grown our space by about 2 times and got a collection improvement grant to get new cabinetry, and so we've really upgraded everything just in the past couple of years. So we're in good shape to begin doing a lot of our digitization now. Our digital infrastructure, if anybody's looked for our database, you'll see this old FileMaker database, which John Morse started back in the early 90s. He was really kind of on the forefront of digitization. And so far, this is all that people can see. It has some limitations, which are frustrating. I try not to dwell on the negative, but there were no unique identifiers. That wasn't really a concern at the time. And the data have only been captured down to the county level. So we have partial capture of a lot of our collection. We've since converted this over to Specify, and this is what all the data are going into now, but we don't have a public interface for that yet. For LepNet, we're supposed to be doing about 16,000 specimens, and that covers about 1,600 identified species in the collection, about 1,500 species of moths, about 250 species of butterflies. And imaging, these numbers were in flux so much, I'm not sure what we're really committed to now. I think I saw 3,500 on the last slide of Neil's, so we'll shoot for that. At this point, as we've been reorganizing, we've been trying to do 1 specimen per species, kind of fully digitized, and that's really let us go through and sort out all the taxonomic issues. So we know that our taxonomy is up to date, and after that's done, we're going to go back through and do kind of the massive capture. This Congaree data set's got some interesting aspects, and I think this is one thing I thought would be sort of outside the norm. We got this data sheet that you can see down in the bottom left with all of the specimen records fully captured. So we sort of have it, but we need to add our own unique identifiers to it. So our digitization is really going through and putting our barcodes on there. We've got the 2D barcodes you can see on some of those specimens in the middle, and associating those with the data sheets that we have. Another nice aspect is that they digitized or imaged about 1,300 of these specimens, so a little bit more than 1 per species. And so we need to connect all these little bits of data as it's going into Specify. So that's kind of our main effort right now. Our workflows are kind of convoluted because of this partial capture. The Congaree stuff needs barcoding. And then for the rest of the collection, we have this FileMaker database that goes down to county, and we've still been kind of struggling with whether to use that and add to it, or if it's easier just to start from scratch. And I haven't made up my mind on that yet. And if anybody's dealing with similar issues, I'd like to chat. The data capture, we've got 1 student that we hired, and this has really been great. He was a high school student in our area, already interested in Lepidoptera, and he worked with us last year. Now he's a freshman at Clemson, is interested in Lepidoptera, so we'll be able to fund him probably through this whole project to do a huge chunk of the work for us. So we're in really good shape there. So he's been mainly working on this Congaree Association, but doing a little bit more data capture as he gets into that. Our imaging is with, this is Alex Wild's sort of custom system, basically recreative visionary digital system for about 1/10 of the money. It works great for 3D things. For Lepidoptera, it's probably overkill. And then for our data sharing, we're probably going to be using the Specify web portal, an easy plug-in, although they've got a major upgrade in the works that I think we're going to wait for and do some testing with them on that. So that's all I have. We probably don't have any time to do questions, but I'm around.
Yeah, and so while he's waiting, as a lot of people probably know, I'm not a big fan of Specify. started scan after a year of being run. It's always got and it's always, I don't care. No, no, and so if you're going to stick with specify, that's great. It's just that we need to make sure that we don't fail. I know how we. Well, it's a challenge, it's better. So she can't be a specified support person. Well, I mean,
Hi, good morning. I work at the University of Idaho, William F. Barr Entomological Museum, so I'm presenting, and my co-author here, Stephen Cook, he's a forest entomologist, and he's the one who was instrumental in getting our collection into LepNet, which was done before I joined that collection. So the Barr Entomological Museum, it was initiated by William Barr, a famous buprestid and clarid taxonomist in 1947. He started from scratches and built it to over 1 million pinned specimens of every orders in 143 California Academy of Science cabinets. And we also have a whole room of ethanol collection. Best represented groups, buprestids, clarids, grasshoppers, aquatic insects, Pacific Northwest butterflies, that's our Lepidoptera strand. And we have a very large collection of rare books and reprints on beetles inherited from Melville Hatch, who's authored the Beetles of Pacific Northwest series. People in charge of the museum, well, Bill Barr until 1982, Frank Merrickell from 1986 to last year, he retired, and I was hired. I started about a year ago to take over as the curator, manager of the museum. Before that, I spent 13 years in University of Hawaii, so the insect collections. So they already went through digitization through Symbiota. So the Lepidoptera collection, the main museum collection has about officially 16,000 specimens, and that's from the database inherited from Frank, but there's actually a lot more than that. And what's not been entered in that list is the Nelson Curtis butterfly collection. Nelson Curtis was the chairman of arts department at University of Idaho, and he was an avid butterfly collector. So he passed away 2011. We inherited of his collection more than 10 California Academy of Science cabinets, plus thousands, tens of thousands of butterflies in place-signed envelopes, in addition to his superbly well-prepared collection. He's an artist, a pottery expert, so he prepared butterflies really impeccably well. So that's so we have the field collection records from Nelson Curtis as Word files, because he was planning on publishing a book on butterflies of Idaho, which never eventuated. So we do have his entire field notes, and he also entered them in Word files. So I used all these hundreds of Word files and merged them together and compiled everything on a single spreadsheet. So we have all this collection and field observation records already on the spreadsheets. It's a matter of associating it with the specimens in the collection. So we had someone verify all the determinations. Now there will be some questions. Should we image and upload everything, or should we, for a large part of the collection, just upload the metadata associated with specimen numbers and indicate who has verified the determinations so we don't have to image the entire collection? The digitization started a few months ago, and we acquired copy stand with very nifty lighting system based on LED system. It works really well. And you have an example here of one digitized specimen with its labels. So as of Friday, last Friday, 1,270 specimens of butterflies were digitized. And the metadata are on a big spreadsheet. And pretty soon, sometime this month, we're going to work on uploading all that information in batch so that we'll have the records on. So who's involved? Well, obviously, Steve as the principal investigator and myself as the day-to-day person doing the logistics. But then two other important team members. One of them is John Shepard, this gentleman on the left side. He came in August and verified determination to subspecies level for the entire Nelson Curtis collections. And he's been working on our main collections since 1963. He, for all the Pacific Northwest specimens in the main collection, we already have spreadsheets with all the specimen label metadata. So we just have to add unique identifier numbers and associate the metadata with the specimens. He did that for the moths of Pacific Northwest fantastic site. He's one of the main people involved in that. So our data is already on that site. So it's just a matter of associating specimens with metadata. And the question that will rise is, how many of these specimens should we photograph? Which families in priority should be photographed? So we still a bit thinking about these questions, and I hope that we can have some guidelines from the group here. Like, many specimens are obvious species, and most of them were verified by John Shepard, the determinations. So it may be that we can take his determinations as authoritative for many of the groups and not need to actually photograph all of these specimens, but maybe a few of each species. And Con Evans, on the right side of the photograph, he's a fantastic young fellow. He came to the museum just a few weeks after I started last year, high school student who just came and said, I'm starting an undergrad degree very soon in entomology. I've been a passionate amateur entomologist since way back, like many of us have. So I hired him in February, and he started the digitization. And he's going to be involved in the project over the next 4 years. And So related projects as offshoots from this digitization. One of them, I'm working on a poster of butterflies of Idaho, which will be used for education and extension outreach for the university. And copies will be distributed to groups of visitors to the museum. And the other project that will come out of that is to actually publish a book on butterflies of Idaho that doesn't exist yet, and we're going to use information and material from Nelson Curtis, and the book will be compiled by John Shepard and I. We have about plus minus 175 species of butterflies in the state. So we already have all the images for the poster and book from Con, doing a few specimens of each of the butterfly species we have in the collection. So that's it for now. Thank you very much.
Chris, did you want to, why don't we stay in the Northwest and we can talk about Oregon State?
I'm the curator for the Oregon State Artifact Collection in Corvallis, Oregon, and we also are working with John Shepard. In fact, we've hired, Chris Marshall from the Oregon State Arthropod Collection. We don't have a presentation. So far, we have a pretty large Lepidoptera collection, mostly pinned material, butterflies and moths. But we also have a lot of papered Lepidoptera in glassine envelopes or in little papered envelopes. We've hired John Shepard for 2 years on the grant, and part of that was to head out to Idaho and help with that collection. And as Luke mentioned, one of the strengths of the collection at Oregon State is that John's been working with Pacific Northwest Lepidoptera for like many, many years and has these legacy spreadsheets of our specimen records. What Luke didn't mention, which reflects what Mike had mentioned, is that legacy data set is a legacy data set and requires a lot of massaging to get it into perfect order. And so the first task is to get individual identification numbers on all of our specimens, which we've largely accomplished so far. But then the real task is matching those records, those specimens, then up to the actual spreadsheet records in the database, in the spreadsheets and/or database. That hasn't been that challenging, but what I've realized in doing so is that just like a lot of legacy data sets, you'll realize that John's, having done it over multiple years, John's metadata standards and concepts have migrated over the years, as a lot of us do. So note fields aren't standardized, date fields don't necessarily reflect, aren't necessarily always the same. So you really do have to still check the records, is what I found, and split them off and make sure that the metadata is brought into accordance so it's standardized across the whole data set. So that's going to be one of our big challenges, but in certain regards we have, I'm not whining about that. That gives us a huge leg up in getting our deliverables on the grant. So I'm really happy with that. So far, we've also hired 3 undergrads. We're going to be hiring more undergrads. We've been training the undergrads to basically put the individual identifiers on the specimens and to begin helping John find legacy records within the data set and match them up. We also have 2 volunteers who work on a regular basis, sometimes more than 40 hours a week in our collection. So we're really lucky with having personnel to get our grants done. The biggest challenge, and one of the things I'm most hoping to get out of the meeting today, is that is how to do this how to speed up capturing images. So we don't have very many of our specimens imaged. We have imaging system at the museum, but how best to use volunteers and low cost approaches to getting high quality images is going to be something I'm really curious to talking to how all of you have been doing this. In addition, I wanted to mention that we've made a big push to work on integrating our papered Lepidoptera into the main collection using this grant. So it seemed silly, since a lot of our metadata corresponds to large series that are split between pinned and papered, and we just have these cabinets of papered Lepidoptera that are sitting there not being utilized by anybody. I think that's unexcusable. So we're trying to get that stuff integrated into this time. So that's something we've been really working on. Over the last 10 months, we've completely reorganized the entire Lepidoptera collection and getting preparation for the grant. So we've basically everything now. I can't find anything in the collection. It's all over the place. I want to put a plug in for the fact that anybody who's here realizes that one of the challenges with this grant is that even to do a digitization grant requires physical hardware. And so it's a real shame in these NSF grants that they're so split between a collection improvement grant versus a digitization grant, just because, you know, we've already had to outlay a bunch of money towards unit trays and drawers just to get ready for the digitization process. So I definitely feel for smaller museums that don't have those resources available, it's really hard to do this without, and I mean smaller collections than ours. It's really hard for those kind of institutions to do something big like this if they don't have the space to spread their stuff out and pull it back in together. For imaging, we're also partnering with Merrill Peterson at Western Washington University. He's been working on the Pacific Northwest moth site that Luke mentioned. John's been working on that. A bunch of our lepidopterists have been working on it. It's a really wonderful portal, and he does these spectacularly beautiful exemplar photographs, plate-worthy photographs of exemplar taxa. So we're going to have a great picture for every taxon in the Pacific Northwest. Then the question is how we get a bunch of other almost as great specimen pictures for the other, for the other specimens. Lastly, I'll end on outreach, which is something really important for us. At Oregon State, we've been doing over 30 years of an annual Lepidopterist meeting at the museum, and it's very well attended. We're beefing that up for the next few years and trying to get more people excited about it and coming in. So we're using this Lepidoptera grant, an NSF grant, to kind of get people more excited about butterflies and moths in the area. We just brought Alma Solis out from the USDA lab in the Smithsonian to take a look at our pyraloids and trying to get our moth collectors and butterfly collectors excited about micro moths. You know, it's a challenge, but it's going to happen. We're going to do a Moth Week project this year. I'd recommend everybody look to see if they can do a Moth Week activity sometime this year. They're coming up in July. I think it's July. We're going to do something there. We've just created, we've just worked on campus to, it's almost about to happen this week, I hope, to create an official undergraduate museum, natural history museum club on campus. That club is going to have undergrads that are going to be able to work in the different museums, take a little bit of the leadership role off of the curators so we can get these undergrads in doing curatorial projects. And I'm going to push really strongly to have some Lepidoptera projects associated with that club. We've been mentioning LepNet and the NSF grant in every media outreach we can possibly get. So if we have someone visiting the museum, we make a note to mention that we've got this LepNet grant. So that's part of our outreach and visibility. And lastly, we're working on well, we've been trying to work on, but I'm trying to get excitement to finish a little laminated card for the common butterflies of the Willamette Valley, which is in Oregon. For those of you who don't know the Willamette Valley in Oregon, we could do Oregon, but nobody's, like, the Willamette Valley is where 90% of the population lives. So we're going to basically focus on the common butterflies of the Willamette Valley. And then John Shepard's been working on things for all of Oregon. Thanks. Oh.
So just in case I don't get this from Chris.
Okay.
So that was a huge, wonderful amount of information. And so Chris, can we get that in writing? Okay. Georgia next. And so Alaska can't be here, but Catherine Daly, for those of you that were at the IC meeting, gave a great talk about what they're doing. Wait, you're going to use your... Oh, okay, got it. So Alaska, and we'll put her PowerPoint up, and it fits in just really nicely with what Merrill's doing in Western Washington and Oregon State and Idaho. It's going to be great.
No, I'm just going to read some notes.
Oh,
Okay, just a couple of quick notes, facts and figures.
All right, hello everybody. My name is Joe McHugh. I'm from the University of Georgia Collection of Arthropods. Our collection is part of the Georgia Museum of Natural History, located at the University of Georgia in Athens. We have a medium-sized insect collection. It's about 2 million pin specimens, over 50,000 specimens in vials, Our real strength is Coleoptera and Hemiptera. We've never really had a Lepidopterist on staff, and our Lepidoptera collection shows that neglect, unfortunately. We have a lot of catching up to do to get that whipped into shape. We have a regional focus, primarily southeastern United States, with a little bit of neotropical representation as well. Our staff is very modest, and our level of collection support is very modest also. There is 1/4 of me, which is probably this left arm, and all of Rick Hobeck, who's our collections manager, and he's a very, very busy guy. And our level of operating support is very modest as well. We rely fairly extensively on undergraduate interns who take, for course credit, take an experiential learning opportunity to work in our collection, and we run them through different types of curational activities, and we'll be focusing them very heavily in the next couple of years on the LepNet project and hope to maximize our use of that opportunity. I have to say that I am very, very excited to be here and be part of the LepNet project. I've been waiting for years for us to jump into the digitization world. With a very modest budget and with a very modest work crew, very small staff, I wanted to be efficient. I didn't want to waste time dabbling and experimenting, to jump in and do it right. Once they protocol and successful workflows and things that were worked out. I couldn't afford to miss. And waste time with half started. Stabs in the dark. So this is our big opportunity. And I'm very excited about it. Um, we again, I plan to rely very heavily on those interns. I will have them working for course credit during spring semester. Summertime, I'll have them with us and hope better of the interns from the from the course credit and hire them through the summer. So they're already experienced. Uh, uh, we have in our collection of as I mentioned, we have about uh, uh, 2 million pin specimens and of those uh, we have 35,000 pinned Lepidoptera and about 26 hundred Lepidoptera caterpillar vials. Uh, uh, we are responsible for doing $35 $100 and 49 smartphone images and uh, digitizing records of 28,500 pins. specimen. No high resolution no high res images and no larval record. And we'll be using the LepNet portal for entry of our data. Up to this point, our main effort has been to raise the collection profile the left adopter collection. It shows the fact that we haven't had a LepNet adopter on staff ever. And so we've been working to integrate a whole bunch of uh, donated collections that were not really fully integrated. Updating the the taxonomy trying to get it all sets so that come January, we can jump in and get off to a quick start. As far as as far as outreach activities, we will have a display at a couple of annually events like the annual insect festival entomological celebration that involves that usually has about 700 to 1,000 people coming in. And uh, I'm looking to have a display a long-term display put up at the state botanical garden. Regardless.
Yeah, let's stay in the southeast. And then Ryan, then you'll be next. And so Zach Murrell, who's the head of a TCN CERNEC and also runs a plant portal, just thinking about extending out, he's really interested in collaborating with anybody from the southeast. So maybe we can get something going with CERNEC and LepNet on doing plant insect type collaborations.
Hi everyone, my name is Gina Hill.
We good? Okay. Sorry about that.
So I'm going to give an overview of the McGuire Center, and then Stacy Huber is going to go into more detail about the imaging process. Center open in 2000 as part of the portion of the Florida Museum of Natural History on the UF campus. The facility was a gift from William and Nadine McGuire, alongside with matching funds from the state of Florida. So we are the largest university-based research collection for Lepidoptera in North America. The Lepidoptera collections that we have include specimens from the Allen Museum of Entomology, the Florida State Collection of Arthropods, and University of Florida collections. So the McGuire Center is a really unique place. It's not just a research institution. It also is a public exhibit. So people can come here and learn about Lepidoptera from all over the world. The Florida Museum gets about 200,000 annual visitors. So people can come and visit various exhibits like the Wall of Wings here and also the Butterfly Rainforest. So we have approximately 5 million specimens in our collections. I think it's important to note that we're still a young collection. So this number is really just an estimate, and we're working on a local database through Specify and Symbiota. And within McGuire, we have 3 floors of climate-controlled collection rooms. We have a number of curatorial level staff as well as students, including postdocs, graduate students, and undergrads. And a lot of these undergrads have created research projects within collections. And this top photo here is kind of the public view into McGuire. So we're a live exhibit. You can see us digitizing in the window, so this is really important. And Stacy will do, she'll kind of give more information about the actual imaging setup in the list session, but basically it's a two-man job. So the actual setup very basically includes a light box. We have gray foam within the light box to create a gray background. We have glass over top that the specimen is pinned to, and the camera is tethered to a computer for live view shooting. And we hope to have one of these setups on each floor of collections. So essentially we could have 6 people digitizing simultaneously. Obviously none of this would be possible without the incredible volunteer program as part of the Florida Museum. There are currently 400 active volunteers throughout all the museum ranges, and they really vary in age from JVs, elementary students, to retirees. Florida has the highest rate of retirees in North America, and interestingly, Gainesville has the highest number of retired entomologists in North America. So, and obviously we'll have a group of volunteers that are dedicated just for digitization. And additional broader impacts at the museum include annual outreach events that we have, and we plan to use citizen science for transcription, probably through Notes from Nature, but it's still being discussed. And as I said, we're a young collection, so we still have a lot to do. Only about 10% of our collection is curated, so we're actively recruiting visiting researchers to help us curate various groups. And we have a large collection of wing vouchers and larval specimens that we need to digitize, so we are really excited about LepNet to really get things off the ground.
Just 1 second. Yeah.
That way they can record it.
Hi, I'm Greg Zonlerich. I'm at Kansas State University in the heart of wheat country and tallgrass prairie. My institution, I need to buy the mic. All right, y'all know my name. So my institution, my department head who hired me named our collection the Museum of Entomological and Prairie Arthropod Research, which is an absolutely horrible name. It was started in 1879 by E.A. Popenoe, the first full-time entomologist employed by K-State. Most of our specimens come from the Midwestern states and the Western U.S. A lot of them were collected from local and regional prairies between 1880 and 1920. So we have a lot of specimens that are a nice historical record of the fauna before there was a large amount of farming or ranching or land change. My predecessor was Derek Blocker. He was a leafhopper guy, so we have a lot of leafhoppers. I'm actually a hymenopterist, and my technician, Jan Metlevsky, is a lepidopterist. So we've done a lot of collecting in the tallgrass prairie in that part of the country since I arrived there in 1999. We have approximately 370,000 specimens. We received 2 grants from 2007 to 2012 that bought us brand new cabinets and drawers and got us databasing. We were also part of the InvertNet TCN. Currently, we've databased 359,000 specimens representing just about 16,000 different taxa. We are using Specify, which I also do not like, but we collaborate a lot with the herbarium in the biology department, and they had been databasing for a year before we started, and they were using Specify. So we decided just for commonality to use that. We're actually using an older version of Specify. Actually, Zach Phelan at KU recommended we not upgrade just because he had a lot of problems with newer versions of Specify, which is interesting since Specify is developed and run by KU people. We have about 28,000 pinned Lepidoptera. All of those are databased using Specify, so we're in excellent shape as far as actual databasing goes. Our LepNet goal is 2,900 high-res images and 5,300 smartphone images, plus georeferencing. So everything is in Specify. It'll be fairly easy to go retroactively georeference the material. Given the budget, most of the work will be done using undergrad students. I've got a pretty decent set of Nikon flashes and the full suite of Nikon
Our workflow is tentative, especially towards the end with the databases. So today I'll be more talking about the photograph, specimen plus labels, and also about our transcription process. As you can see, we divided our digitization setups into two stations. So we have what we call a specimen prep station and then an imaging station, which they are right next to each other. So we have 2 volunteers that work this station, or both stations. Each volunteer works one station with the option of switching. This illustration shows the 2 stations and their location next to each other. The specimen prep station is where the specimen is removed from its drawer, and the labels are removed with flat forceps. Labels are placed onto a gray platform, and barcode label cut for the specimen and placed on top of a light box. The imaging station is where the image is taken for the specimen, and it's labeled. And then when that image is taken, it is flipped to the other side, to the ventral side. Lastly, it is removed, and then labels are put back on, barcode label being last label. In the future, we hope to have 3 total of these setups, 1 for each floor, and so having 3 setups will be able to increase production. So this is the imaging station. The imaging station, we use a Canon 7D camera with 60mm macro lens. We also have the option of a 50mm macro lens. We also use a copy stand kit. The camera is tethered to the PC, and then most importantly, we have our light box. Over top of the light box, we have glass, and then inside the light box, there's a gray foam liner, and we also have our scale, our color card, unit trays, and forceps and putty. The putty is what we put on top of the glass to put the specimen. Our goal in this imaging station was to reduce the amount of post-processing. Thanks to Gina Hill and other colleagues, our setup has greatly reduced the amount of time needed for post-processing. The reason for this is the use of the light box, which lights the specimen from underneath, and the glass that's on top lifts the specimens up high so the shadows are reduced, and also as well as making the copy stand lights to the side and to the top. So that is our imaging station. The specimen prep station, it has unit trays, so there's flat forceps, barcode labels, and then we use 2 gray platforms. This station has minimum supplies, but it is the most crucial to digitizing. So what actually happens? 2 specimens are being prepped, digitized at the same time, and we're averaging about 2 minutes per specimen. So what is happening is that the tech that is removing the labels of the specimen, which is at the specimen prep station, it puts it onto the light box. The other tech, who is at the imaging station, checks placement of specimen and sees that all labels are in the photo, as well as scale and the color card. Then the person takes the image. While the image tech is taking the image, the specimen prep tech is prepping the next specimen, taking its labels off. Putting labels onto a platform and cutting barcode label. After image of dorsal side is taken, the specimen is flipped. Image taken, specimen removed. Labels placed back onto specimen and placed into a unit tray for a specimen prep person to put it back into its drawer. So while the specimen is being prepped to be put back in the drawer, the specimen prep tech has already placed another specimen to be imaged on top of the light box. So basically, it is a continuous circle of removing, placing, imaging, and replacing. So here's a close-up of the gray platform. So the gray platform lifts the labels into the image so that they're on the same plane as the specimen. So labels are carefully removed, and we've been having problems with our really early labels, like from the 1900s. So that's why we've been using flat forceps, and we've been training volunteers to really be careful when they're removing, because those old papers tend to break. So labels are carefully removed. Labels are placed in the platform in the same order that they were placed on the pin. So the top label is at the top, and then the barcode label is placed at the bottom, because that will be the last label on the specimen. And right now we're actually in a discussion of changing our barcodes to QR codes, because our barcode labels are pretty big. So here is an example of our specimen. So it's showing all aspects included in the image. So it has our color card, scale, and all the labels. As you can see with the labels, the top label is the top label, and then the bottom is the barcode. Now, in some special cases, we have found that labels have information on the back. So when this happens, the tech that is running the imaging station that flips over the specimen also flips over that label, so that way that we can digitize both sides. So currently, we are saving 2 copies of every image, JPEG and RAW. These files are saved onto the museum's shared drive and is backed up daily by our OMT. What we have is a volunteer that comes in later, and she manually renames each image to match the barcode number, so to create the catalog number. So it is the MGCL _ barcode number _ gender ID, and either if it's dorsal or ventral. So if the gender is unknown, which we've been coming across, we place the underscore where the female or male gender ID would be. So right now we're thinking of doing, for transcription purposes, when these files are ready, the images, we're going to upload a batch to Notes of Nature, which will create an expedition. Here, citizen scientists will be able to transcribe. The thing to remember is that the labels are in the image. So by having these labels in the images, we are reducing the amount of time that the specimen is being handled. We also hope, besides using Notes from Nature, we hope to do events like iDigBio in the future. And so once this transcription of this batch or expedition is done, we upload it into the different platforms, which is tentative for us on how that workflow is going to go. So in summary, we are a live exhibit of digitizing. We set up decreases post-processing. 2 volunteers are working at the same time. 2 stations to make up the digitization station. 2 specimens are being digitized at the same time. Images are of specimens and its labels, manually renaming images, transcribing from images, not from actual labels. Transcription will take place from Notes from Nature. So, and we also wanted to thank our growing group of volunteers. Right now for this project we have 10, so we average about 2 a day. And thanks to those that have shown through support and to our funding. So, maybe one next question. Yeah.
Hi again, I'm Rachel Hawkins, still with the Museum of Comparative Zoology. I wanted to give an overview of our sort of unique system that we have developed at the MCZ. We have about 180,000 butterflies and about that many or fewer moths. The main question for us was really how to get full data from our pen Lepidoptera into a database quickly, accurately, economically, and with minimum handling damage to the specimens. The solution that we came up with is a process that we have called data shot, which separates the data entry from specimen handling in a 3-step process. We go from preparation to imaging and then data entry and transcription of labels. The first stage of preparation, this is a typical drawer of Lepidoptera in the collection. We have a specialist or an entomologist go through, identify the specimens, make sure that each unit tray has a unique assortment of specimens, only one species per tray, and making sure that specimens are not shingled so that unskilled workers can remove and handle specimens without too much damage. We use a pre-capture application which was written by Paul Morris and others at the Harvard Herbaria and the Museum of Comparative Zoology. They've used this in the herbaria for a lot of their digitization projects too. This allows us to capture taxonomic information from the collection and generate header labels. So we use these in the image, and the nice thing is that they can also be reused as header labels in the collection. We can put them in as unit tray labels, so they're appropriately sized for that. Then we can use them down the road. We can use them for imaging up front. If we get more specimens down the road, we can reuse these labels. So all of the information is encoded in this QR code, which is machine readable, but also human readable text to the side. We prepare the drawer for imaging by inserting the header labels into the tray. Once the tray is imaged, we either put the header label horizontally or we actually insert it into the tray. Yeah. It only contains taxonomic information. So the higher taxonomy, author, specific name, other text. Like location in the collection, or? Yeah. So that we apply a catalog number as well that has a 2D barcode. Yeah, this is just to machine read the taxonomic information. All right, so once we've prepared all the specimens, we take drawers that are ready and we move them to our imaging workstation. So here you can see we have a computer set up, which is tethered to a camera and the imaging rig, and then the drawer of specimens that is beside it. This is different slightly from what McGuire Center is doing, is that we only have one person who is operating this rig. There's a little more details on our imaging rig. We use a DSLR camera, which is hooked to a macro lens. We have a barcode reader, which reads the catalog number that we're applying to each specimen. We use LED spotlights, a custom platform, which was designed and put together by Rod Eastwood, our engineer and lepidopterist. You can switch this out for different formats. If you're imaging, we've used it for imaging ants. We've used it for imaging Lepidoptera. Large Lepidoptera, you can use a larger carriage. So it's really customizable. And then we use special forceps and a pinning block. Here's a close-up of the forceps we use. So these are just modified from spade-tipped forceps, and they actually go around they apply more even pressure to the label, so we're not pulling on one part of it, and allow us to easily remove labels from the pen. So we remove the pen labels, we place them on the imaging platform. The same thing as Florida, we keep them in the order. That's very important to us. So the top label is the first one on the pen, the last one is the last. So those are all set on the lower right corner of the upper part of the platform. We place the specimen on the platform. We've used in the past a foam base to place it, and the specimen ends up at about the same focal height as the labels and the scale bar, which is nice. We can also switch out that lower base for like an 18% gray card with a clay mount, and that will allow us to flip the specimen over to get a ventral view as well. We use these really nice barcode numbers, which generally correspond to the catalog number. Those are placed in the upper right corner, and those also have a QR code, which encodes just basically the MCZ ent and then the catalog number. And that's double-sided print. It's like tear-resistant paper. They're very nice. So altogether, this is what our rig setup looks like, all the different pieces. We also, one thing I didn't mention is that we also make an effort to photograph historical unit tray labels, which are often notes about the specimens, historical determinations. So we're capturing both the current determination and previous concepts of what people have identified that in the past. We use also a color separation guide or a spectrum color card in the image of the specimen. Once that is all nicely set up, we push the button. We use a remote operated shutter and standard camera software, just the software that came with the Canon camera. We capture that barcode, which was put in the upper right corner, redundantly into the metadata of the image. So it's currently going into the comments field. I'm not sure if this is standard EXIF data, but our software can find that comment and read it in. if the OCR, or not the OCR, but if the machine reading of that barcode fails, we've redundantly captured it. And then you can see the running tally of images at the bottom. We don't use the barcode number in the name of the image right now. Partly this is because we do sometimes take double-sided images when we have double-sided labels, or two images rather. But this is something we could look at changing down the road, but right now we're really able to easily associate multiple images with a single record. We've used one. I'm not sure where we bought the one previously, but just you can order them online. Yeah, this is one that I sort of inherited. I'd have to look up it and see, but I can put that in. I can provide that information for sure. Once we have taken the picture, we reassemble the specimen, keeping all the pin labels in order. We use a pinning block made from, I believe it's an old phone book. And then we return the specimen to the unit tray and repeat. The barcode label is the last thing to go on the pin, and depending on the size of the specimen, it's variously visible. Moving on to data entry, this is the third step of our process. We use a program called DataShot, which was written by Paul Morris and others at the MCZ in Herbarium. This allows us to do transcription, parsing, interpretation of this image, and we use custom templates that allow us to automatically zoom in on areas of the image for specific transcription. So the program will read the barcode and set up new entries in the database. If we have, for example, two images of a specimen for a dorsal and ventral, or we have a double-sided label, the program will automatically create a single record with two images tied to it. The machine then reads the taxonomic data from that QR code and automatically parses it into the database fields. So at this point, even if you haven't done any label transcription of the handwritten labels, you can search for the specimen. We have all the scientific name in there. You can search for it. You can search for the catalog number. So it's in a nice holding database, which is still really useful to us, even in the absence of finished transcribed information. Then our bottleneck, or the part that makes DataShot really helpful, a human reads the text from the label. So you can see this is a template where it's zoomed in on this part where we put the pin labels. Humans read the text from the labels, parse that text, and interpret it, putting it into different verbatim and interpreted fields that accord with the Darwin core. So you can see how this might pose a challenge for OCR with some of our handwritten labels. We have a way to keep track of this data entry too. So we have various, you can see who's touched the record, when. We can also mark it in various fields. Is there a problem with the record? You can see, has only the pin label, or has only the taxonomic data been done? Have we transcribed the pin label? Are there problems with that? Has the record already moved to MCZ base and is now locked? So we can see and filter on those fields to determine what needs to be done and what has already been done. And then you can see the data entry history, which gives you an idea. There may be multiple people that edit or touch a record at various points in time, and it's nice to know who has done what when. So once all that is done, is there a question? No? Okay. Once all that is done, the record is checked and moved to MCZ base, which is a modified version of Arctos hosted at the MCZ. This gives you kind of an idea of what the record looks like. The image is tied to the record, and you can zoom in on it. There's a very nice image viewing function that allows you to view both a full image and zoom in on different parts of the image. Once this record is hosted on MCZ base, it then pushes out to other data aggregators like iDigBio, GBIF, Encyclopedia of Life, etc. And it's accessible to the public too. This figure gives you kind of an idea of the time budget that we have been working with. These numbers were calculated by Rod Eastwood. We imagine that it takes about 1 to 2 minutes per specimen. This is usually done by an entomologist, the first step of preparation. 1.32 minutes for the specimen data and imaging. That really can vary depending on how nimble your technician is and how much, if you're doing both dorsal and ventral imaging, that's obviously going to take a longer time. And then the data entry is really our bottleneck. It's taking us 2.3 minutes on average to do records. Some of them can take longer. But that's the step that we're really hoping to speed up. Reasons why we really like this: it's a pretty reasonable cost. The equipment costs under $5,000 for us to set up, and then the pre-capture application is actually open source and online. DataShot is also open source, but it requires customization for your specific institution for the holding database that you're using, but it's also, I imagine, will be available in the future. I'm not sure. Sorry, I don't know that. I think that's probably correct. Yeah, I mean, I know that's. Yeah, yeah. The workflow in general reduces handling of the specimens. You can do transcription without having to touch the specimen, and it reduces damage in general. The data entry is also very flexible. It can be done by anyone at any time, anywhere. You can also zoom in on the image and look in more detail at some of these really tiny labels. One thing that I particularly really like is that it really captures all of the data. You get an idea of the handwriting, which we may be able to identify if somebody's just written a date. You can go back and figure out who wrote that and when. The type of paper, the ink that they've used, the order of the labels on the pen, specific labels that may be similar across different parts of the collection can be associated with each other. And it really is a nice permanent record of our specimens. If, God forbid, there were to be some damage to the collection or the labels were to fade, we do have this snapshot of the specimen associated with the data at that point in time. You can see on the right an example of some of the labels that are typical for our collection that can pose really quite a challenge for transcription. That's something that honestly we need to do a better job on standardizing, but usually we use a bracketed, illegible in our verbatim transcription, or people just do their best. We have had instances where somebody can't read, this one on the bottom that says Cottonwood Canyon, Inyo County, but an intern may not be able to read that, but somebody else may be able to go back and figure out exactly what it says. Yeah. We have a in the DataShot holding database, we have a flag that's quality control. So if somebody's really concerned, they're like, I'm really dubious about this, they can flag it as QC problems, and then that can go to a specialist who can then review it and mark it as, I've fixed this problem, or yeah. So we do have that flagging capability. What? No. We have a specialist reviewed flag as well. I mean, we have had some things move just as text entered, but we do try to incorporate a specialist review to take a second look over it, because there can be errors and we don't want those to creep in. So future directions that we want to take this workflow is to adapt it for exemplar imaging. It's possible to substitute in a different base and try to adapt this for both dorsal and ventral imaging through a separate but similar workflow. Given the limitations of the DSLR camera with a macro lens, I'm not sure that this will be workable for things that are smaller than 2 centimeters. I've done some test images and I don't really love the quality of the images, but for larger things, I think it will be very workable. The second direction that we're thinking about taking this in is crowdsourcing our data entry to a larger degree using Mechanical Turk. So we just had our initial meeting last week about this, so I don't have too many details yet. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm talking from my tiny slide. Here we go. So we're talking about crowdsourcing our data entry through Mechanical Turk. Rather than asking people who are really unskilled and working remotely to do interpretation and parsing and coming up with this finished data, we thought that it would be better to scale it with a focus on unskilled verbatim transcription. And that would give us really, it's sort of a different approach that we haven't used before, but it would allow us to begin clustering and interpreting unique values. We're a lot-based collection, and so you may have a lot of things that have the same data, but they're scattered throughout the collection and are difficult to aggregate. And we don't want to physically aggregate them. The collection is organized taxonomically. But it will allow us to begin clustering and interpreting those unique values in bulk, and that will free up our staff to do more skilled data work involving the parsing of that data and the interpretation of that data. All right, so in general, I want to, my huge acknowledgement slide, the principal investigators and major architects have really played key roles in this, and this talk is adapted from slides that Rod Eastwood put together for previous presentations, so I thank him greatly for that. We have a huge number of interns and volunteers that have helped us over the years as we previously imaged all of our butterflies, and then the support staff that are working at the MCZ and have worked to help make this possible. Thank you very much. I'll be happy to answer any questions. It's a model that uses microtasks. I think right now the pilot that we're planning to do, we're going to offer a higher cost per specimen, or to incentivize people to do them quickly and get us a turnaround rate. But I think after that we will lower the amount. 30 to 50 cents a specimen, maybe less. It really just kind of depends how long it takes. We're not sure how long this task will take, and we just want to get an idea of that before we can get a better. But I think probably we'll offer something around 50 cents or less per specimen for the initial pilot, which is sort of workable with like minimum wage, given our current estimates of how long it will take. Yeah. So 70,000 have been databased and moved, of the butterflies have been databased and moved to MCZ base. No. So we're going to have to go back and do a lot of exemplar imaging for our butterflies, I think. All of the butterflies have been imaged, but that was not part of LepNet. It's nice because, we can still provide these records, but in a lot of cases we're going to have to go back and provide ventral images. I don't have that figure. I really wish I had that figure, but I don't have it. Sorry.
Well, so I just want to make a plug for this is great, but try to get stuff down on paper and sharing it with people. For example, you guys use a flat forceps, but not the slot. The slot is great. And maybe we can get somebody at Harvard send them a bunch of flat forceps and help.
I think they just made it with a file. Yeah.
I tried one time, I couldn't do it. How do you cut it?
I'm not. Rod Eastwood is the one who made it.
And so this is where I really try to encourage people to do just YouTube garage videos.
Maybe we can convince him. Yeah.
So biopurple is small important. Well, yeah, and so that's just one example. So I noticed that you have 18% plastozote.
Thank you.
I still can't take that publication and go in my garage. I just like, damn. So anyway, but so that's to me just an example of if we share stuff. So using the flat forceps is great, but the slot is really great. And so you had on one of your slides 18% plastozote.
Yeah.
I'd love to know where you got 18% plastozote.
Or no, it wasn't 18% gray. So in the past we used like closed cell plastozote foam that we spray painted, and we've since switched, according to the specifications for LepNet, to an 18% gray card, which uses a clay mount. Yeah.
You put the gray card on the plastozote?
No, I've sort of tweaked it. I use a gray card with a hole punched in the middle, and then I fill that with clay so you can double side the specimen. But all of our butterflies were, or almost all of the butterflies were imaged with the plastozote background. I don't know. That's very interesting. that would be fun to play with.
Well, you know, it's fun to like. Well, yeah, for the groups that we have to get different shots.
And something like data shots can be modified to take both images at the same time, drop it right out into it.
But actually thinking about that, I don't know how, I mean, we use your paper for our educational course, so we'll layer the entire bottom of the floor with that, and we put our LEPs in there so they can easily see the ventrals. That never cost actually taking pictures of those.
So you want a really good, if you
I
have to have a really clean mirror under glass, dust free, but you could get a really high resolution single shot.
You still have to remove the labels. Yeah, that's true. Well, okay, so I guess the point I really want to make is the degree to which you could put stuff on paper as specific as possible. From where you got it, I think that would really, really help everybody, because every one of these I've been seeing things that I wish we did in our collection. And it can save so much time by having very specific information. So so getting back to this 18% grade card. So we initially in the proposal had a color spectrum. Roy Larimer from Visionary Digital, I think, convinced us that we really only required that 18% grade, and it doesn't need to be 18% grade. It just needs to be something for white balance. Now, people like Larry are going to still put the color card in there, and you can do that, the full color spectrum. But whatever plasticite we use, whether it was 18% or not, maybe that actually does work.
I think it's a little darker when you look at some
but it doesn't have to actually be 18% according to Roy.
Yeah.
As long as you calibrate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the issue.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We had an issue with our color standards actually fading over the years. So the color standards are still very bright in these, but unfortunately in a lot of the, they weren't replaced. And so in a lot of the later images, it looks really bad, and I wouldn't trust the color standard. So actually replacing your color standard is something that people should think about.
But, go ahead, Chris.
Do you have to information about who studies your, when your students entering the record, do they get any credit for transcribing their name in the record anywhere?
So the person who marks it as specialist reviewed is marked as migrating the record to MCZ base. There is not, because so many people can handle the record, you might have like 5 people that have worked on the record, so there's not a way that those names are tied into it on the MCZ base side, but in our holding database you can see who's touched it. Yeah.
So the students, when we get students volunteers, that's one thing.
Right.
They like to have their names.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's something we could think about trying to incorporate. I'm not sure off the top of my head how we would do that given our current model, but
Well, the history of
yeah.
so you can have some at the first. Like,
Yeah. That would be nice.
Jen,
Thank you.
But, and so while Jen's getting up, get ready, so we've got Notes for Nature for people who use Symbiote. The Briarfly people have built a crowdsourcing module in Symbiote. I don't know about the other software, but third one is Mechanical Turk. And when I talked to Matt Yoder at the ICT, he said, well, there are other sources that are actually cheaper than Mechanical Turk. It gets to the kill quotient gets pretty low. We know that all of those in these countries where people don't get paid that much. But just sharing practices would really, really, really be helpful. So I think it's great. We know what you're paying for Mechanical Turk. What would be great is if you then got really good, solid people share those names with others, and that's another option for crowdsourcing. And then another source. So now Jen is going to talk about another source of crowdsourcing that, and that is associated with this InSelect program and using people from correctional facilities to actually crowdsource it. Should you do an introduction while you're waiting, or?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, I think I might need to go get Kevin for this one.
The computer's not working. Okay, so anyway, I'm Jen Zaspel. Many of you know me. Oh, sure. Sorry, I don't want to get in his way. Okay, so I'm Jen Zaspel. Is it working? Yeah. Okay. And I'm the director of the Purdue Entomological Research Collection. So for those of you that may not know where Purdue is, we are about 2 hours south of Chicago in West Lafayette, Indiana. And so in the interest of time, my plan was to give the introduction to my collection and then talk about our workflows and then say a little bit about our crowdsourcing project after that. I'm giving my presentation without the PowerPoint for now, but if you could help us get it up, that's better. So we have just under 2 million specimens in the PERC, and most of our specimens are stored in ethanol. So we are a big aquatics collection, and so of the 1.5 million to 2 million specimens that we have, more than half of those are wet. Oh no. No, you can't move the arrow on the screen very far, so it's really strange. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, well, I'll keep going through the historical stuff until they can pull up the PowerPoint. That's fine. So the collections that we have are primarily historical. So we have, but not the historical Lepidoptera collections. And so, in fact, our Lepidoptera holdings are fewer than 15,000 pinned and about 1,200 larvae in vials. And so we're relatively small in terms of the Lepidoptera in our collection, but that also gives us a little bit of flexibility to try some different things in terms of databasing and also imaging. And so that's what I was going to talk about today.
If I'm here, things totally went wrong.
No. Hey, I just got up here. It can't be my fault. Let's see, what else was I going to say in terms of the history of the collection? We have 280 drawers of Lepidoptera. So we have a compactor system with 95 cabinets and 24 USNM drawers in each of those. And so of those, just over 2,000 drawers, 280 something are holding leps. And no.
You could do a duet.
Joke? I do have a joke.
Cool.
Let me see if I can remember exactly how it goes. So, yeah.
That's what I'm doing right now. Turning it on, turning it off.
Oh, okay. What did the genus say to the species? I'm not your type. Oh, I can talk about personnel. That was another slide I had. I'm going through all the... So for personnel, I'll start at the top. We recently we recently hired a new department head who's a systematist and evolutionary biologist, Stephen Cameron. And then I'm the director. I said that already. My collections manager is Dr. Gino Nerns, a coleopterist working on longhorn beetles. We have a biodiversity data manager, Alicia Hodson, also a coleopterist, works on fireflies. And then I think we have, we're up to 14 students and other staff in the PERC. And so about half of those are my graduate students who alternate working in the collection on curatorial assistance or as part of their own research, end up curating their groups and databasing their groups. And we've recently hired 5 new undergraduate students, and that's largely due to the LepNet project, but also a recently funded CSBR grant. And so we're busting at the seams with people, trying to upgrade our storage, get things curated, and electronically expand. There was no database when I got to Purdue 4 years ago. And so we really are starting from scratch, which in a lot of ways it's a good thing, because then you can do whatever it is you want to do. It is? Okay. Oh no. Do you want me to grab my computer? Yes. Okay. Yeah, I think so. I just don't want my email.
I just connected with a username called video. Can you make me a presenter?
I think this is it. Yeah.
I'm back in. Can you get my user again? Can you get my user again? Presenter, right? Sorry.
I do. Yeah, I think we should be good. Okay. So, correct version. Okay, so I went through a lot of this already, so we'll just kind of move right. We'll just move right along past that. Okay, so this is where I'll begin. This is kind of a summary diagram or schematic of our workflow in the PERC. And so it all starts with specimen curation. Because the collection didn't see much activity for the last probably 5 to 7 years, you know, we are still going through and doing some of the initial curation prior to imaging. And so with that process comes also the business of adding unique identification labels to our specimens, sort of pre-scanning or imaging. This workflow is largely based off of the same workflows that we used. Oh, I'm sorry. There are a lot of images up here all at once. Okay, good. That's where we're supposed to be. All right, sorry about that. Okay, and so these protocols and workflows are adapted based on the InvertNet project that we were also a part of. That project has just wrapped up this year. And so for InvertNet, with our slide specimens, our papered envelopes, and wet collections, so vials, we were using an Epson flatbed scanner. I think I can point to it and stay by the microphone. So, and the arrow's not working here either. So for things like odonates, and you could also do this with papered butterfly specimens, we would lay those on a tray and scan them with a flatbed scanner. We also use the LepNet herbarium scanner for a lot of our odonate envelopes, and this is what the scans look like. You can see the label data, or the labels are fixed to archival note cards, and then the odonate specimens are in these clear plastic envelopes that we heat sealed. And so we actually transferred all of those specimens out of glassine envelopes that you couldn't see through into these, and we have about just under 15,000 of those specimens, so it's a pretty serious undertaking, and then of course getting all the labels out and transferring those and gluing them down. But it works really well. You can see all of the labels and the specimen at the same time. And then we use this slide scanning tray that was developed by the InvertNet team at the Illinois Natural History to scan slides. As you can see here in the bottom center of the slide, and then we adapted that tray for vial scanning. And so this might be relevant to some of you in here wanting to scan caterpillars. And so you just put your vial in between these pegs, or in some cases we use these little pieces, little strips of wood, and then we take the labels out of the vial and set those next to the vial or above it, as is the case in this scan that you're looking at. And then we take a microscope slide and put the microscope slide over the labels, and then you scan the vial with the specimen in it and the label above it at the same time. Okay, and so those are the protocols that we use for everything that's not on a pin. Okay, and so around the time that you know, we learned that this project, the LepNet project, would be funded, I was at the British Museum of Natural History working for research, and I had a conversation with Jeff Martin about their iCollections digitization project, and decided to sort of hybridize that workflow with the InvertNet workflow for whole drawer scanning. And so for whole drawer digitization, we ended up making these unit trays that are lined with gray plastizote foam, and then there's a foam step on the side of it. And you can see this is our whole drawer scanning and digitization room. And we have a dedicated Cornell cabinet where we actually prepare all of the material in advance. And so the specimens go into the unit tray. We just finished making all of these boxes. It took a long time. But then the labels go on the side of the specimen on the little foam step. And then we take the drawer out once it's been prepared, and get it ready for scanning using the Bug-Eye robot system developed by the Illinois Natural History Survey. And so I had video here. I'm going to try and see if it will work. So this is the Bug-Eye. This is a USB camera mounted on these arms, and the arms are operated by a motor. Originally, there were 4 arms, but the robot was getting stuck, and so the developers at the INHS said to remove one, and so now there are 3 sets of arms and 3 motors with this camera tethered to the computer attached to it. And so this robot takes about 350 images per drawer, which are then stitched together using Stitch Daemon software developed by the LepNet software team. And so the scan takes about 3 to 4 minutes. The stitching takes about 4 minutes. But while you are stitching the image, you can also simultaneously be scanning the next drawer. So we have somebody swapping out drawers while the specimens are, or while the individual images taken by the camera and the robot are being stitched together. Yes?
So the drawers, perhaps you remove all the labels and put them next to the specimens?
Yeah, yep. So I had a demo at ICE where we have a unit tray that has a little foam step, and the labels are set up on the step so that they're in the same plane as the specimen, or roughly. Yeah, so an entire cabinet is prepared, and then each drawer is scanned one at a time with the label data. And so you can see an example here of what this looks like, or what an individual unit tray looks like once it's been segmented out of the scan with all of the unit drawers together. And we use the InSelect software program to segment out the individual unit trays. And then, let's see. We have our drawers here, and you can see unit trays get segmented out, and then you can visualize each of those individual unit tray images in the InSelect software package. So there's a graphical user interface that allows you to see the image on one side of the screen and then transcribe the label data on the other. And so we have been working with a youth correctional facility about 25 minutes from campus. We've set up workstations where these students, as a reward system for good behavior, are able to participate in data transcription and essentially be a part of a biodiversity project at Purdue University, and they're very excited to be able to help us with this. But recognizing that they are non-specialists, we put together a user manual and troubleshooting guide to the InSelect software package, and that's what you're seeing here underneath the InSelect logo is a page from our user guide. And so it's about 25, I think, PowerPoint slides. We laminate those, and we have them bound, and then we send them off to the correctional facility so that students can see which data goes in which field. And then, of course, when the data comes back, it comes back as a CSV file, and our biodiversity data managers proof those, as do some of our graduate students. Some of the correctional students are helping transcribe data for graduate student projects, and they are responsible for proofing the data when they get it back. And so from there, the goal is to upload those CSV files and images into our Specify database, where we can then batch georeference and also make the data available, the data and images available through our web portal, and also to iDigBio through our IPT. So, oh. We're back, sorry. Some technical difficulties here. Okay, so yeah, so here you can see segmentation and then data transcription. We also have collaborating institutions that are commuter or non-traditional student campuses, and they're also doing data transcription in Intellect for us. They're doing that remotely. And so I guess I had a couple of slides here with some information about the correctional facility, but I think we're really running short on time. But you can see here at least a summary of the workstations that we have. We have 8 data transcription workstations set up in various classrooms. And so at all times we have up to 8 students working on this several hours a day, sometimes 6 days a week. And so we've just set up some additional workstations. We were able to get a bunch of refurb computers, and so we've had a little bit of a disruption in the process, but we should be back on track here and generating data as we speak, I hope. And then just to thank our partners, and I guess, I don't know if we have time for questions, but maybe I could take a quick one, or we could chat about it over lunch.
How much time is required for quality checking the crowdsourced work?
So that varies, and we haven't done a whole lot of it yet because we've just started this. One of my PhD students had some folks transcribe data for part of her project, and I think she said it took her a couple hours to go through everything, but I think she had a couple thousand specimens that they transcribed for her. So I'd have to check. But initially these were sort of very focused, sort of pilot projects. So I don't have like a standard number for you yet. But hopefully a year from now we'll be able. Right now we know what kind of errors students were making commonly, and so we've kind of adjusted and provided additional training and additional pages to some of these troubleshooting guides that we send to the correctional facility. But yeah, we'll have a better idea of a sort of assessment, I think, here in the next several months. But yeah, I think you're going to find that folks, until they, and as they get used to doing this and they have a greater understanding of what they're doing, and they've kind of, gotten over the learning curve, I think it'll improve. That said, when you're dealing with a correctional facility, the students don't stay there forever. So you're going to have turnover, and you're going to have to train the next batch. But we're hoping that we can take kind of a Montessori approach and have the older students, or the students that are more experienced, train the new ones, and just keep it rolling along that way. But it's something they are really happy and excited to be a part of. And so, and some of the students, they intentionally misbehave because they don't want to go home. And so they've taken all of the classes that they can take at this institution for credit, and they're literally, in art class 8 hours a day. They're getting bored, and they need other things to keep them occupied. So, and then someone made a comment earlier about labels that could not be label data that can't be determined, and we have a separate folder for those. So if there's any doubt or question, the image with label data just goes right into that folder. Could not be determined, and then we have to do an assessment there when we get the hard drives back from the institution to see if it's something that actually can be determined, or if it's just something that remains an image in Specify that folks will have to query through the Specify web portal later. Okay, well, sorry about the technical troubles, guys. So. Yeah, I think, so there again, we haven't done a lot of assessment around that. We'll be able to compare that directly with the students from the IUPU Columbus commuter campus. But I think, as it goes, most students starting this are going to be slow, and they're going to make mistakes. Even the best undergrads, are going to get bored. They're going to get on their phones and watch movies, and so I think I'm guessing, but I think the quality will be pretty comparable. So yeah, okay.
I think, did anyone have any comments or thoughts they wanted to share before we break for lunch?
All right. Well, I think we can break for lunch then, I guess. What's that? What is, it's a really good. 11:30 to 1? Okay. Okay, should we, I don't know what Neil had planned after lunch. I mean, we could add, a half hour to the lunch break if anyone wants